I can't stop you, nobody. And so having that mindset of number one, I can do what I want. I can do whatever I want to do in my life, as long as I put my mind to it and achieve what I want to achieve, because it's possible. People told me that it was impossible for me to be in this position, but it's possible. It's possible because I put my mind to it. I didn't care what people said, or I didn't care what people said about me. People that talk about me negative didn't do nothing but make me stronger and make me more humble than I am right now. That's it.
Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Oh My Curry Goodness podcast. I'm your host, Hamza Islam. On each episode of this podcast, I talk to Gen Zers from different fields about the experiences that have shaped a person into who they are today. When it came to the idea of this podcast, I want to break it down into two things, which is that for one, I hope you guys as listeners join me in taking a few things away from each guest as you continue to write your own story, because even though that these people have done incredible things, you can always learn from them that can help you in your personal life. And secondly, I want to create a podcast where we don't just talk about the who they are part, but also what they are, which is a human being. And while these people have done incredible things, that they had many challenges they had to go through in order to become the person they are today. So when it came to naming the podcast, Oh My Curry Goodness, I broke it down into the fact that when we hear stories that are interesting, we say, oh my goodness. And then I added curry because it's one of my favorite foods. So, oh my curry goodness sounds pretty catchy. And so I hope you guys continue to come back each and every week to learn from inspiring Gen Zers, and as well as just continue to emphasize the importance of understanding people. Now, my guest this week is Mayor Jaylen Smith. He is the mayor of Earle, Arkansas. And in 2022, he was elected mayor of Earle, Arkansas at just 18 years old. This made him one of the youngest mayors in the United States, and as well as the youngest Black mayor. I'm very excited, and this is this is the first time I've ever interacted with with a mayor, so I'm really looking forward to speaking with Mayor Smith, even though we're not in Ohio, but nevertheless, Mayor Jaylen Smith, thank you so much for joining Oh My Curry Goodness.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be on today to share my experience and story with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. And it's so cool to be able to speak with you because you are one of the youngest mayors in the country and the youngest Black mayor. And it's so cool to be speaking to someone with such a big platform. But I want to start with you. You're very passionate about civics education and politics. And this isn't just something like really recent. This was something we could go back since like high school days. I feel like nowadays people are talking about politics with especially with the 2024 election coming up, but a lot of people don't like to talk about politics because it's a boring subject for many people. But in your eyes, tell me what excites you the most when it comes to politics or civics education.
I mean, really what excites me when it comes to politics is number one, I like a politician that's going to do what he will talk. So with me as a political leader, I like to show and tell my community members of what I want to do to really number one change community, because understanding in leadership, community what saves community, not the politicians. And so that's really what really excites me, really, when politicians are really doing their job to really make sure that their people are moving forward to the next level to succeed.
Yeah, and it's weird because lately I've been trying to get involved in politics, not like necessarily like joining any organization, but just trying to be more informed. And what's really interesting is I know we lot, I'm sure you know this as well. A lot of people like to talk about those national elections because they're like, I mean, I guess understandable because especially with 2024 with so much at stake, but then there's also the importance of understanding that change doesn't just happen in the national level, but also in the state and local level. And I'm sure that as mayor of your city, it can sometimes be difficult to get people excited, given that people care so much about what happens nationally, without understanding that we can also create change in our local communities.
Correct. Most definitely.
Um, Before we talk, I do want to talk about your personal journey, but one of the things I want to start with is talking about the city of Earl. And I know you've talked a lot about this in the past, and obviously because you're the mayor. But what I am curious to know is you've talked about in the past how a lot of your friends would like to go out in different cities other than Earl or move to different cities, but you're someone that wants to stay here and to help the city grow. And you said that you want to do everything that you can to make sure that Earl is in a really good place. And you obviously are from there, so I'd love to know. I love asking this question to people who have like a really unique connection to their hometown. Tell me a bit about what Earle, Arkansas has that you feel like no other city in the country has. Because, for example, I'm from Columbus, Ohio, so I love the city. There's like the sense of community. It's like a really it's a really big community where it celebrates people. Sure, it's not Los Angeles or Seattle or New York City or any big city, but there is that sense of community that maybe you could find in other cities, but I don't know. There's just something about your hometown where it's like you're able to experience it firsthand. So is that how you see Earl, with like that sense of community, or what are some things that Earl has that you feel like no matter you could try to put yourself in other places, but it just won't have that same feeling.
Well, I would say some similarities to that. Early is a community where we are one family. We all come together for that one come and go, and that's to really help move our community forward. When people in this community fall short, the community we come together as we come together as one to really help people. We may fight and do different things, but at the end of the day, we're one big family. And I don't believe Earl have nothing yet that I may have or some similarities too, but we're in the process of getting that, moving forward and getting things and being and having that big city mindset of, with building and bridging community, but our main thing with the city of Earl, we're one big family. When people fall, cotton beans, etc., 3.25 square miles of the city, but mainly our biggest strength is coming together and celebrating with one another and really celebrating each other within this community.
When it comes to I like the way you brought up the import, like that sense of family. Well, and because that really is, it's not just a community. It's like a really big family, or a family of some sort. Now, we also are not everyone thinks the same. I think let's put it out there. Like, even though you might be from the same place, everyone has different opinions. But like you said, that it's all about bridging those communities, uniting people together instead of dividing. How do you how do you embrace that part, that sense of that understanding that even though people have different opinions or different viewpoints, that you're able to still maintain that family relationship? Because especially when it comes to politics, right? Like, if someone has a different viewpoint, we tend to divide ourselves or distance ourselves. But you talk about the importance of that community or family oriented way, and it's about bringing people together regardless of how people think, whether it's like especially when they think differently from you.
Correct. Well, understand number one that when anything you do, people want to agree to disagree. And understand that at this thing called life, you're gonna have people to agree and disagree with you, but understand that people that are disagreeing with you are not an enemy to you. They're disagreeing because they may not see the same perspective that you see it, but they see the same thing you see, but it's different that they see. And understanding that when you have obstacles and challenges, and when you're agreeing to disagree, it's good, because you want, as this family that we're doing Earl, we don't have people that agree with us all the time, because if people agree with us all the time, how can we grow as people and as individuals? And so having people in your corner, number one, that disagrees with you, to kind of help you better understand what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve, but they see it differently than the way you see it.
I want to transition into, I guess, a little bit more on your upbringing, because I you might have to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you grew up with your mom, and I think and you said that a lot of the reasons why you are the person you are today is because of what you saw from your mom, and you talked about how you have a very special connection to not just your mom but to other family members, not just Earl, but like in your personal family. And
Mhm.
I love asking, I ask this question a lot because I find it really important, especially when it comes to that connection you have with like your family or your parents. Tell me a bit about that. I'm I wouldn't say, well, maybe I'll say it. I often say the word pressure, where it's like forget like representing the city of Earl or everything, but it's like you making your parents proud because your parents do so much for you so that you could have the life that you want or to have like a really good life. When you look at all the work that you do, whether it's with the city of or whether it's mayor or just in your personal life, do you ever feel like you
Mhm.
have some sort of pressure or like motivation, not necessarily motivation, but like I guess pressure to like make your mom or your family proud in the sense that like yeah, you're doing too much, but there's like you want to continue to live up or not live up, but you want to continue to um I guess I don't want to say live up, but it's like you want to continue to um do more, or how do I word this? It's like okay, let's just say for like a better term, it's like you want to like not necessarily live up, but it's like your parents have done so much for you, and now it's like okay, now I want to do more so that they feel proud of me. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's like that sense of like I want to be able to hopefully by the time everything's all said and done, see that my parents are proud of me for everything that I do.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that makes sense. I for me, my family, I mean, my family and my mother, I mean, my family and my mother proud. But understanding that in everything you do in life, they may not be proud of it. But understanding when you're trying to get to the road of success, understand there will be failures, there will be mistakes. But my family remains supportive and remains proud. And so I just look at it that way because, if you're trying to make people proud, you wear yourself and you'll wear yourself very thin. And so with me, my family's proud. What I do, my goal is my ultimate goal is to make them proud, understanding that they will be disappointed in some ways and somehow, but it's just a mistake. But you also understand that you can come back 10 times harder than what you did, and so that's really how I look at that. And they look at this that way as well, because our ultimate goal is to make our family and our mothers proud. But the thing is, we're gonna have dark days and good days.
How do you you talk about the dark days and the learning from failures. Um, it's something that we all acknowledge but don't want to experience. And I don't
Mhm.
want to say how do you learn from failures, but I am curious to know how do you embrace. Let's talk about how do you embrace the unknown, because
Okay.
whether it's in politics or anything in general, you don't know whether it's success or a failure, but you try to plan as much as you can so that you hope that the thing that you want becomes successful. But there are times where you will not get the results you want, and you will have bad days or you failed at something that you thought you could succeed in. So when it comes to like not knowing the eventual outcome, which I think can scare a lot of people, how do you embrace that, knowing that you don't know whether what you hope happens may or may not happen?
Okay. So I'm put it to you this way. Better way to put it to you this way. So a wise measure of a man is not where he stands in comfort and convenience, but where he stands in time, challenge, and controversy. So I stand in challenge and controversy every day. I rather have more bad days than good days because from my bad days I can learn and I can learn more from my good days than versus from my bad days. I mean my bad days versus from my good days. And so for me, I rather take failures and say, well, I got it like that. And then when I fail and I get something I just can't get over. So understand, I mean, in life, take failures, make mistakes. Because if you live a life that you're not making mistakes or taking failures, when you really get to something, you won't know how to deal with it. But your failures and your mistakes, that's it's nothing. I mean, your failures and your mistakes ain't doing nothing but making you stronger as an individual.
What would you say? And this is a question I ask a lot of people because one of the things I mentioned in the introduction is that sure, a lot of people have done incredible things, but there were a lot of good and there were also not only good things but also unfortunate or failures that happen. So we can look at you as someone who's mayor, but I can't imagine that not every step of the way was always good. There were also challenges that you had to go through. What would you say? And I want to, and I, you can think of anything that, and I don't want you to be like, I hope I don't make you feel too uncomfortable when I ask you this. I don't want you to share like your darkest days, but do tell me what were some of the things that what were some like I guess the worst days or like the most difficult days that you're grateful for? Days where you thought that at the time you thought were like the worst things to happen to you, but you look back and you go, I'm grateful that I went through these experiences because I wouldn't be where I am today.
I mean, some of those days are pretty much once a week. I'm very grateful for what my creator put me in, regardless if he did or didn't. Because number one, I'm very grateful for any test for my any test for a testimony, and so I believe in that so much. Every dark time I go through, I'm very grateful and very excited that I went through that. Because it's nothing but teaching me a lesson and really getting me to really understand and learn more uh, from the mistakes and dark days that we do have.
I I know that not your family plays a big part of you or plays a big part in your life. Another thing I want to talk about is faith. Now, this one is going to be a little bit tricky because one of the things I'm Muslim and I know you're a Christian, so
Mhm.
we we might have a couple of
It all
differences.
ties together.
We have a little differences, but nevertheless, I want to focus more so on like the broad topic of faith. Um, when it comes to religion or faith, do you um h- I usually say religion is like your shield in some sense where it kind of protects you from a lot of the things that may be unpopular or popular, especially. And now I want to know from like a mayor's perspective, because obviously we want to make sure that we separate faith and politics as much as I mean faith and politics. But when it comes to making decisions, do you ever feel like faith in a way kind of has like a shield that can protect you from any kind of like negative reactions or perceptions? Because the decisions you make can affect the people that you serve. So I'm wondering from like a faith perspective, do you ever see it as like you can like you're kind of like protected from any like potential harm or like any negative like concerns? Like if you make a decision, you're like, I can go to a peace knowing that I had good intentions, that I tried my best, and
Mhm.
yet even though I tried to do this, it ended up not going the way that I wanted to. So I'm wondering, I guess, like, do you ever see faith as like a shield or like a protector when it comes to like making decisions? I know that sounds really weird, but
Well, no, it's good. I see faith number one as a shield and protect number one. Um, and then two as well too. Also again, understanding that the decision that you make, you can't satisfy everybody. That's just life, honestly. I mean, you only can make a decision that is best for the people or best for people. But the thing is, you're not going to get a 100% of cooperation from everybody. That just can't happen. But you make the right decision by the best intentions that's really will better help and better serve the people.
okay, so you bring up, I think a lot of the times we've spoken, we've talked about how people may not agree with you. Not everyone will be able to support what you do. And I know we talked about that with faith and then also with like the idea of embracing different conversate or embracing conversations with people with different viewpoints. As mayor, I feel like you might get this a lot. So what advice would you give to people when it comes to the idea of worrying about what other people might think of you? Because the thing is, yes, I'm meeting you for the first time, but I don't know you. Like I don't know your intentions. I don't know everything. But I know that like you know yourself better than everyone else. So even though you might do the best that you can do, everyone will have like different opinions. So what
Right.
as someone who has like who's in a position in politics, what advice would you give to people in terms of like a broad sense, in terms of not worrying about what others think of you?
Okay. Thank you for that question. I do get that question a lot, and honestly, my advice to people that understand that people are going to find something to talk about you either doing it good or bad. But I was always told if people don't talk about you, then what are you doing? What are you doing? If people don't talk about you. But understand that people that do talk about you, good and bad, people that are negative to you are people that are really sharpening you. Your enemies don't get, your friends don't get you to destiny. Your enemies do. People that are evil to you get you to where you want to be. People that are evil to you get you out your comfort zone and make you live your best potential. The people that you are cool and comfort with, they don't do that. Your enemies do. And so understand that people that are gonna talk about you, They just doing. I mean, they're just really helping you. Uh, be take you. They just that number one. They just help. They helping you to go to even higher heights. And I just believe that so much. So I understand that people don't talk about you doing good or bad, but continue to press forward and never give up. Never give up. Never.
I love that the idea of never giving up, and it's interesting how you talk about how your enemies can help you become stronger because it's all about that motivation. Tell me in your personal life, has there been a time that someone pushed you so much that even though you hated that experience, it's almost like that topic of gratefulness where it's like, I hated these moments, but I'm grateful that I went through these moments. Tell me a
Yes.
time where someone pushed you that even though you didn't like it and you thought it was like you didn't like it, but you're grateful that they pushed you because it helped you change how you view things as a person, and then it also may have changed their viewpoint as a person.
Okay. So honestly, it was my high school. It was my high school principal. When I was in high school, my high school principal pushed me to the limit. And I had days that I wanted to give up, but my support system would allow me to give up. And so it's a lot to cover, and I'll get onto the details. But in high school, I had a high school principal that gave me pretty hell for 3 years. And so it was crazy. I wanted to give up. I just wanted to just leave it alone and just I'll never come back to it. But I had a support system that didn't allow me to give up because again, going back to what I said previously, is your enemies get you to destiny, not your friends.
I love to see that. That's a great answer. I have three questions before I let you go because I know you are very busy. So
Yes, sir.
the first thing I want to ask you is you are obviously, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you are 19 or 20 years old. I think you're
20
19.
now.
20.
20.
Oh, so there's no doubt that you are part of the Gen Z generation, and given your age, I'm wondering if there's any pressure when it comes to representing young people or like our generation in politics, because we are obviously one of those people. We're a generation that wants to advocate for change. Well, I mean, I'm sure every generation has that, but like especially like with our age, we want to show people that we have the abilities to make decisions that we think can benefit our communities. But then there's also that part where if we mess up, then people might go and look and say, well, see, this person messed up. That's why we can't trust these people. So, as someone who's 20 and is the mayor of Earle, Arkansas, is there any pressure, or I guess do you at times struggle with maybe perfection at times, even though you talk about it's okay to have failures? Is there any pressure or like concerns of perfectionism as someone who's of the Gen Z generation, knowing that you have a platform and yet it's like all about showing other people that like we as Gen Zers have the abilities or the capabilities to create change in our communities, whatever that may look like.
Well, in my opinion, no, it's not, it don't, number one, I don't feel pressure because as a leader, it goes back to again where no one is perfect in this world. And so that we're going to make mistakes. So I honestly, I don't feel pressure in this position at all. And number one, and also in this Gen Z society, where I don't feel pressure whatsoever.
The second thing I want to my second to last question is fear. Now, I saw that you in previous interviews you said that you are a very ambitious person, that you're not afraid to do things in order to get what you want or that can better help the community. But if do you well I was going to say, do you have any fears? I'm sure you have fears, but like what are some things that you hope to what are some fears that you hope to overcome in the future that you feel like are holding you back from becoming your best self? So for example, I obviously host a podcast, but if you ask me about like having genuine or like regular conversations, I struggle with that because of fear of judgment. And then the
Mhm.
idea of putting myself out there, whether it's like putting myself or the podcast out there, I think when you're talking to people that are not guests but just regular human beings, there's that concern of failure. So I hope to overcome these because once I do, I feel like I would have a better viewpoint on on failure and not worrying about what other people think. So what are some things that you hope to overcome in the future that you feel like are holding you back because of fear?
Yeah, so I don't feel number so I will say this. I don't have I honestly don't have any fears. I don't have any I don't have only fear I have is passing away. It's the only fear I have. But other than that, I don't have any fears because going back again, fear not, you know, fear not. Because when I want to do things in this community, in order for me to be successful as a person, I have to take a risk to become successful. And understand, people gonna judge me, but judgment don't define who you are as an individual. Challenges and obstacles and distraction don't define who you are as an individual. Everything that we go through in life is a test for our testimony. Because we're gonna look back and tell the next person, this was my experience. And once you reach over that barrier and reach over the next barrier and the next barrier and the next barrier, you have a story to tell. Because you can share that, tell people, I didn't throw in the towel. I didn't give up. Because number one, I believe that I can accomplish anything I want to accomplish in my life. All I gotta do is have a mind say, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's go. Only person can stop me is me. Nobody else can stop me. Nobody else can stop a person but themselves. I can't stop you, nobody. And so having that mindset of, number one, I can do what I want. I can do whatever I want to do in my life, as long as I put my mind to it and achieve what I want to achieve. Because it's possible. People told me that it was impossible for me to be in this position. But it's possible. It's possible because I put my mind to it. I didn't care what people said, or I didn't care what people said about me. People that talk about me negative didn't do nothing but make me stronger and make me more humble than I am right now. That's it.
Wow, that was awesome. I think it's true. And I've said this so many, and I had a lot of guests that say this. Have said this on the podcast, which is that we can be our greatest allies, but we can be also our greatest enemies. So, sure, people will say things about you, but at the end of the day, you're the person that can stop you from reaching your full potential. Now, my last question, and I'm kind of hesitant to ask you this because I feel like I already know the answer to this, but
Okay.
one of the questions I've asked lately is, it's similar to the question, what advice would you give to your younger self? But I want to ask you, throughout your journey there, regardless of the good and bad experiences, or particularly during those bad experiences, sometimes we can say or do things that we think would make us feel better, but it ended up making us feel worse. So when you look back at your life, what are some things that you regret saying or did because at the time you thought it would make you feel better or would make you better, but it ended up making your situation worse?
Nothing. Honestly, absolutely nothing.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that was really interesting. But wow. Okay. Cool. Well, Mayor, I know you are busy with representing Earle, Arkansas. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining the podcast. It was great meeting with you. I wish you the best of luck with everything you do as mayor, and I'm sure in the future when it comes to politics. And I hope we get to meet in person someday.
I thank you, sir, so much for having me on your podcast, and I look forward to that day as well, too.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. If you guys like what you saw, be sure to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at the OMCG Podcast for more information on guests, preview clips, and more. Please continue to support this podcast in the future, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next episode.